For our conversation today, would just love to hear your story about how you started on Amazon, what made you want to do it. Now that you're on Amazon, what's going well, what's not. So with that, Matthew, tell our listeners who you are and what you sell.
Awesome. So my name is Matthew Tesvich. I'm a 23-year-old entrepreneur, graduated from University of Georgia, and we have a pretty unique product. We sell Skunk Skin, which are stink-free socks. The journey started about 2.5 years ago. I was a baseball player. I was going to play at Georgia, and then I ended up blowing out my arm. Tore my labrum on my left side, tore my labrum on my right side, and tore a ligament in my elbow. So 3 different injuries. And so God closed the door there. Doctor told me it was going to be at least 18 months recovery, and baseball is pretty much out the picture. And so I needed to come up with something creative to do with my time. And so a few days later, my roommate actually ended up coming home with an antibacterial towel, which really changed the direction of my life. And that's what inspired the socks, because odor stems from bacteria. I always had stinky feet. My teammates always had stinky feet. And so I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, I wonder if we can do something similar here. The technology of the towel and put that into socks. And so fast forward 18 months from then, we finally had a MVP, a product, and we landed on the front cover of USA Today, went national with it, coast to coast. We were in 44 states within a week of launching, and it's really been a blast ever since.
Well, congrats on that. That's awesome. So I've got on the screen here the new Skunk Skin here. And tell me a little bit about how this product works.
So essentially, odor stems from bacteria, like what I told you guys earlier. When the sock touches your skin, it neutralizes that odor-causing bacteria on contact. And so it doesn't have any chemicals. It doesn't have any powders or sprays or anything like that. When it touches your skin, when it's applied to the skin, it's constantly working. It's healthy for your skin. It's good for you, and you don't have to worry about it wearing off, it being tedious and needing reapplication. As long as you're wearing the sock, it's working.
That's pretty cool. And your story about how you came up with the products makes a lot of sense. Sometimes when we have turmoil, one door closes, another door opens, so to speak, right?
That's right.
So how does it make you feel to know that you still have control of your destiny?
You know, my faith's big to me. I'm a Christian, and I think I owe all this to God. I don't think I could have done it without him. I was trying to control my destiny with baseball, and that's obviously not what he had in store for me. I got hurt, and now we're doing something bigger and better. The biggest thing with baseball is I found that I was living for myself, right? It was so self-glorifying, self-fulfilling. You know, you hit a home run, you hit a grand slam, you strike somebody out, and it's all about you. Everybody's cheering you on. But with the Sox, we're getting stories from literally all over the world now of how we are transforming people from embarrassed to confident overnight. And that is true joy. That is true fulfillment. Like I've seen you, Stephen, on a lot of your LinkedIn posts, we've got the opportunity as entrepreneurs to give back and help people who are less fortunate with the blessings that we've got. And I really attribute that to God, and it's amazing.
You talked about starting things. You know, there's a lot of people who listen to podcasts to figure out how to overcome their inch wide, inch deep fear that's a mile wide. And how did Amazon come up for you initially?
You know, I'd heard stories on both sides of the spectrum with Amazon of don't do it, don't do it. You know, so many people fail on Amazon. And then you heard the other side too of, oh, we just use Amazon to sell. That's our only sales channel. And so I think at first I really wanted to focus on just Shopify. And after talking to enough people that recommended Amazon, they said, you know, go ahead and try it. We've got somebody who we're invested in. This was a group called Ty out of Atlanta. We had been doing a pitch competition. They had some folks that they had invested in, and they said, they'll get you onboarded on Amazon. You don't have to worry about any of the handling. I think from a business owner perspective, I was so worried about having to deal with all the overhead of Amazon. As you know, all these intro emails I send you, Amazon is tedious, right? There's so much to do on the seller side. It's very convenient for the customer, but for the seller, it's difficult. And so the big thing was getting an agency to help us take that lift. And so we started with an agency, and this is kind of my story with Steven and my Amazon guy, and why I recommend so many people to them is because we started with an agency and we worked with them for 60 straight days and we had no progress. You know, I'm doing interviews with all these people to make sure that, you know, our brand's registered and that we're passing. It's people all over the world trying to verify us. And we still weren't on Amazon after 60 days. And so I was frustrated. We were spending all this money with this agency. And so I reached out to one of my mentors and he connected me to Steven. And literally within a week, we were up and running. We were selling product on Amazon, and they had communication. They had an awesome team. They had over 500 different employees in all different aspects where they could help us and answer literally any question that we had. And so I know, you know, I'm talking a little bit around the question here, Steven, but Amazon to me was, I think, looking at kind of like a mountain that we had to climb, and being able to use you guys and have somebody that could take that lift for us and make it easy and make it, you know, possible. That's really what helped us forge that next step into getting onto Amazon.
Well, thank you for the testimonial. The check is in the mail. For our viewers, Matthew has probably referred more people to Mag than any other person in the world this past year. And so he is a relentless fan. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. So obviously he's biased. He's going to say nothing but positive things about his experience. But Amazon is not always a positive experience. Let's talk a little bit about that. You've run into some challenges along the way. Talk to me about some of those challenges.
Yeah, I think customer support's a big one. it's easy to get flagged on Amazon. One issue we're dealing with right now is our images, or PDP, I believe it's called, is where we're toggling. So we got different sizes. As a sock, you got small, medium, large, you got white, black, you got different sizes. So we have 12 different SKUs. And what we've done is we've made unique SKUs with each image. So when you click small black ankle socks, you'll see that reflected in the image. Well, that's not reflecting on our product display page. And we're about to be on a major national Amazon Prime TV show here in 2 days. That's part of the reason I got this buy it now background. And we need to get this fixed. And so that's just one simple example with Amazon. We don't have any contact with customer support. We're not getting any help. That's one frustration point. Another thing is we'll see competitors try to buy our product, leave us 1-star reviews, and they'll make things up and it's not valid. And then you try to get that review thrown out and Amazon seems to have nothing to do with it. Oh, we'll get back to you. Oh, we'll get back to you. We can't talk to anybody besides a robot. And so, it's tough because there's so many sellers and Amazon seems to, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of work that can be done on the Amazon side to help sellers.
So I see exactly what you're talking about. So this is a live problem. And sometimes in the clothing category, the parent will override the child information, which is what I see happening here. And then the variation that's farthest to the left, so the small, is overriding the medium and the large. This is a little tricky to solve. My team probably has like everything doing it correctly to try and resolve it, but that one sucks. So I definitely hear you on that front. I'm going to take a couple notes and check in with the team to see where they are with that. But I wanted to point out that this is something that anybody in apparel, I ran into this exact same problem selling my holsters as well. So sometimes in sporting goods, which is kind of your product's right on the cusp of sporting as well. So very, very common. Breaking up the parentage is inferior to allowing the problem to persist. Otherwise, then it's harder to find the products sizes that make sense for people. But the nice thing about the variation drop down here, that generally will overcome the consumer challenges. So that's on the plus side. As for the reviews or Chinese showing up and writing things, it's almost always the Chinese playing black hats. The Americans seem to get caught and banned, but the Chinese have 12 other accounts, so they don't care at all. So that's never going to go away. And it takes usually about 3% of product reviews can be removed. That's a very low number. And, you could file 100 tickets and only a 3% shot getting a removal there. So my favorite solution to that problem, just get as many sales in the door as you can so that one-star fake review gets overcome. And some people who are maybe new to selling on Amazon are like, well, what do you mean they're fake reviews? And like, is that like a legit thing? It is, unfortunately, the nature of the beast in 2024. We're seeing that a lot with Chinese sellers. So those are really two great examples. Appreciate you sharing that, Matt. What about on the flip side? What's gone well for you? Like some people said, don't sell on Amazon, but you've had a little bit of a positive experience, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is everybody shops on Amazon, right? Like the world is literally your oyster there. The world is your customer. And so if you're selling on the main channel, this is almost like a grocery store that people can access anywhere in the world, any time of day. Everybody's buying things through Amazon. And so if you're selling there, you're able to compete with everybody else. If you do things right, just like I think my favorite thing, Steven, is your main image hack. And I had no idea what that was. I think the average person probably doesn't know what that is. And the concept behind that is you take whatever your product is. So for our instance, it's a sock, and then we've put our packaging behind it. And then you put a little something on there. So for us, it shows it's a single pack. It shows what size, what color, what SKU it is. And then it just beefs it up a little bit. Steven's got several different examples of that on his website with a barbecue caddy and some other things. But it's amazing the difference that makes and how much more incentivized you are to want to click on it. And so all that to say, I think being able to play with the big dogs and be able to compete with everybody else on Amazon is huge. They've got FBA, so they're able to fulfill. You don't have to worry about any sort of internal fulfillment, any sort of 3PL on your side. And those are some of the nice things as a seller to be able to go on Amazon and know that that's all taken care of.
That brings up a good question. So your parentage variation override issue, maybe we should put a generic image in for all of them that shows, hey, here's all the color options, here's all the size options to resolve that. So I took that down as an action item to look at that with the team because that might be beneficial. But yeah, the main image hack, 100% fastest, easiest way to grow sales on Amazon. Having a keyword, showing the products inside and outside of the packaging, which have all been accomplished on your listing here, and which is great to see and love to see it. I wonder, in your category, this is actually harder. You can't get away with very much in the clothing category. So I'm curious, if we type in ankle tab socks, how many people are using a foot in their main image? And so there's one. And as we scroll down here, it looks like maybe about 15-20% of them. And so I'd be curious to see if that would make a meaningful difference for yours. But in your case, like that back heel right there is very unique. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so the concept behind that, and I think it originated from runners, is you prevent the blisters and the rubbing up on your heels. So whether you're wearing Yeezys, running shoes, you don't have to worry about getting that rubbing on your ankle, because a lot of people like that no show and not showing off your ankle sock. There's the 3/4 sock, there's an ankle sock. So this really doesn't show what sort of sock you're wearing. It shows that ankle bone, but it still protects you from rubbing up and getting blisters on your heel. So that's the nice thing about the ankle tab.
So it's very unique. And if we put a foot into that, we might lose that aspect.
Lose that visual. Exactly.
And so, I'm curious to see like if there'd be a way to showcase it somehow. Maybe like have we got this top right corner to play with. Maybe if we added another shot of the sock, but with a foot in it and then rotated backwards, maybe that might be a way to do it. So I'm going to ask the team to see if we could possibly do that, because that's curious. Maybe put a reverse shot of foot in sock here and see how that A/B test might stack out. I bet you it'll beat the current, and it'll be more of a problem of whether we can overcome the algorithms robots preventing from playing with the main image too much. That'll be the only hurdle. But in terms of it beating this image, I think it would. So that might be a good upgrade or takeaway.
Why do you think for the athletic space they're so much more strict with that main image versus something like a kitchen item or something like that?
Great question. I don't have the answer to that question, only the observation that it is stricter. I've done a lot of sporting good brands, and I've had more trouble getting away with optimizing for the customer's best interest. It may have something to do with just Amazon's view of models and main images. And there was probably some exploitive like swimwear and some other categories where they showed scantily clad women or something like that. I know I had a good friend who owns New Wave Swim Buoy. He had a lot of his images taken down for showing cleavage with his buoys and stuff like that. But like even arm sleeves, like for men's products and socks, we've seen a lot of challenges with that. But I think it's probably because of the category manager is a little bit more stricter, or they've had the category locked down for a long time. It could also be the fact that there's simply more competition. And so when there's more products available, they can raise the bar and have a very streamlined customer experience, if you will, or if not streamlined, at least congruent or similar in nature. So that'd be my best guess, but I don't have any insider information. I like to claim that I'm the taxi cab driver of selling on Amazon. And if you get into a taxi cab and I take 17 different brands to the same location to go to the Empire State Building, I know something's going on at the Empire State Building. I may not know what, but I know something's happening there. So then I put a guy to watch the building, and I notice other things and whatnot. Even though I'm not in the meetings inside of that building, you can figure out by who's going in and out and what's happening. And
right.
If people are leaving at midnight versus 8 p.m., you get the idea. So that's kind of how I draw most of my conclusions. I'm like the Aristotle boots on the ground. A lot of people do more of the Plato philosophy. I'm very much the practical. Here's how to do it, step by step guy.
Yeah. Data driven.
A real Amazon seller needs tenacity and grit. So let's use that as a good transition to the next question. What do you think you need to survive to be an Amazon seller, and why is it tenacity and grit?
You started with the Chinese. I think one of the biggest, I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the biggest things is you're constantly getting ripped off by people who can make it cheaper than you, right? So something as at least a CPG owner, consumer packaged good, we hear all these horror stories of you create a product, right? Most people source out of Asia, primarily China, and then they will literally open a factory right across the street. They already know how your product's made, and they know the vendors, they know your packaging, they know your verbiage. And so they open a factory right across the street, and then they can cut out the middleman, which is you. And they can just launch that straight into the Chinese market, straight onto the Amazon market, and then they access, through Amazon, the American market. And so that's an area you need tenacity. You need to be able to, be a bulldog and be proactive and fight that off, be able to stand up for yourself, be able to make those claims, especially when Amazon's not necessarily responsive on kicking other people off your listing and seeing that other listing's a fraud. That's a simple example of where you got to have tenacity as an Amazon seller.
Let's talk next about like your future. So where do you want to be 5 years from now as you look into the future? with Amazon, your brand, your business?
I want to expand beyond socks. Sarah Blakely's a role model of mine. She started Spanx. Ben Francis with Gymshark. Both of them redefined the way that the clothing industry was. So Gymshark with their seamless clothing in the gym wear category, obviously. Sarah Blakely with the shapewear. And we've got a product that's antibacterial, that can eliminate body odor, that can literally transform you from embarrassed to confident overnight. And so imagine what we can do where we're seeing deodorants and sprays and powders bad for your skin. There's all these natural healthy solutions that really aren't working. What if you didn't even have to wear that? What if you could just wear a t-shirt? What if you could just wear boxers, a sports bra that did that for you, and you didn't have to worry about these bad chemicals touching your skin, something that's chemical free? And so that's really where I envision this. I want to expand beyond socks, and I want to completely redefine the clothing industry as we know it.
That is a bold vision, dude. Like, I'm so excited for you. So where do you come up with your own intuition? I mean, like, you don't have a lot of business experience, but you have a lot of business motivation. So like, where are you coming up with your continual, like, man, this is the most important thing today? How do you come up with that?
I think it's still a journey for me, but it boils down to sales, right? Like, if you're not selling, you don't have a company. And so I think a lot of times it's, how do you drive sales?
All right. So how do you drive sales, Matt?
That's the fun question. So let's rewind 2 years ago when I first started. We were formerly known as Oxnox. I had spent my entire life savings, which was like $22,000 at the time, on
Which is a
inventory.
lot for a 21-year-old. Let's be abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you
Yeah.
could have like lived on that, traveling the world for a year easily. Big investment.
Big investment, right? Spend all my money. And now I'm sitting on 10,000 pairs of socks and I don't know what to do with it, right? But I was forced to figure out that MIT. How do we sell? How do we get as many eyeballs as possible to be able to sell this inventory for free? Because everybody else is running Facebook ads, Google ads. They're saying that you need money to make money, but I don't have any money. So how do we do it? So I started telling my story and reaching out to the press. And that became my MIT. Every day I was looking at Atlanta News First, Fox, all these different groups, and literally just emailing my story, trying to create an attractive headline or hook, and sending out tens, hundreds of emails a day. And so eventually we'd get a bite. Typically we'd get a bite from one reporter per news group. And then we'd get a story. We'd get a couple $100 in sales, couple $100 in sales here. And then one popped. We ended up getting a story with the Athens Banner Herald, which is a branch of USA Today. USA Today picks it up nationally, coast to coast. And this is 2 days after we officially launched. I'd been doing all this stuff kind of in like the pre-sale days.
You worked on everybody who's an overnight success is like a decade in the making, right?
Exactly.
So going into your pre-launch, like, how many months of effort did you do PR work before you made that success?
At least 3 months of pre-work.
3 months. Okay.
Yep.
That's not that much. Like, when you look backwards, right? Like 3 months of daily grind and boom, you're on USA Today's magazine or whatever.
Right. So that was just as far as, the PR goes. We did a lot of stuff social media wise prior to that. It was, like I said, it was 18 months just formulating the thing. So anyway, we land on USA Today. I wake up, it's like 5:00 in the morning. It's Thanksgiving morning, 2022. And we already had 17 Shopify orders. And so I didn't recognize any of the names. Everything prior to that had been friends and family. And so I start emailing the customer.
Funding your business idea. All right. Love it.
Right. We had finally achieved that threshold. We broke past mom and friends. So I started emailing customers. I'm like, where did you hear about us? And nobody responded. And that day we ended up getting 350 orders. And finally, a sweet old lady from, I think, Kansas or Nebraska, somewhere in the Midwest, sent me our article. And it was me holding a pair of our socks on the front cover of USA Today. She's like,
Wow.
Dude, how do you not know? You're on the front cover of USA Today. And so that was an example of the tenacity there.
I mean, like, you are the true entrepreneur, right? Like, you set your vision. It's this huge vision. You daily grind it. You self-teach. Like, you didn't go to a PR class in college, probably, right? Like, how'd you wake up one day and be like, I'm going to get on the front page of the USA Today? You didn't know how you're going to do it, and you went and learned. Like, tell me a little bit about that decision process.
I think it's figuring it out. Growing up, being a baseball player, I was always undersized. I didn't throw as hard as the other guys. Other dudes had full grown beards before I barely had leg hair. And so I felt like, I was 2 years behind puberty wise. I had to figure out how to pitch, and I had to figure out how to hit and figure out how to play with these guys who are grown men and figure out how to make it work. And it's the same thing in the business world. As an entrepreneur, you're constantly solving problems and figuring it out. You don't have a roadmap. Everybody's journey is different. Steven, somebody could try to create an agency, do the exact same thing as you, and fall on their face. Somebody could try to start another apparel company, do the same thing as me, and never land a big PR story, and it fizzles out. But maybe they make it big another way. So everybody's journey is unique. And I think I realized that playing baseball realizing that I don't have to throw 97 miles an hour as left-handed pitcher to play at Georgia. I could be a crafty lefty and be able to, change directions, change speeds, keep hitters off balance. And so that really fundamentally changed my framework. And then it was figuring out how to do it. It was being crafty, being shifty. When you don't have anything, you're dangerous because you have nothing to lose. And that's what I was 2 years ago. And I still feel like I am that way, right? We want to be creative. We want to be different. That's why we call it Skunk Skin. It's a fun brand for a funny problem.
If you had one piece of advice to give your fellow entrepreneurs, whether they're 20 or age 60, what would it be?
I would say to just go for it. You got to take the first step. It's a cliche saying you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But if you don't go for it, if you don't just try to sell, you don't even need to have a product. Gauge your customer base, try to sell something, and then you'll figure it out. If you sell a product or you sell a service, you'll figure out how to fulfill that product or service, or else you're going to have to give the customer their money back. But it shows you validity and you're hungry because you now have someone else's money and you got to figure out how to fulfill it. So I would encourage you to, I know it's scary, but it's never as scary as you really think it is. So take the plunge, take that first step and go for it.
So Matthew, it was great talking with you today. I am very much invigorated by your anticipation, your motivation. It's intoxicating. So appreciate you sharing your story here on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Stephen. This has been great.